thank journalists. So we have one of these guys, we have then you, then we have the three process. So the topic here is the flagship inclusion, and sort of the intro to that is who's being left out.
Sorry, on the topic of who's being left out, we're missing sound in Zoom. Second. I think they're hearing me. Kay, are you hearing me?
Yes, just not Mike.
Just
I think
not
we're
Mike.
hearing him very quietly.
Hello, citizens of Zoom. This
Yes.
is Mike calling. Good.
Thank you.
All right. So everyone on Zoom, just imagine I said something incredibly eloquent and good. Just simulate that in your head as we do in this community. One thing I wanted to mention is feel free to get up and move a little bit closer. It'd be great if this is kind of an open discussion. We have like great experts here with great ideas, but everyone else in the community probably has some really good ideas too. It'd be nice if this is like an open discussion. I really have no idea how to structure this, but we're all like adults, and we want to hear from you. If you have something you feel like you can add, then that's great. We have a microphone up here, and feel free to come up at any time. Everyone on the panel is okay with being interrupted at any time within reason. Good. So as I was saying, I sort of interpreted the call for this panel to be like who's being kind of left out of our community, and either actively or passively. And hey, how could we like not do so much of that? That's kind of my understanding of what we can talk about today. I sort of had a few goals that maybe we can all come away with ideas of things that we can do. Those of us who are kind of interested in being allies and kind of don't know what that looks like could come up with some concrete goals on an individual level, and maybe also discuss things that could be done at the level of the community. Maybe have some ideas that could percolate up through the IACR leadership, maybe, who knows. Good, I think that's what I wanted to say. I hope you'll forgive me for having notes, because I want to be precise about my language. Good. So as an icebreaker, I thought we could start off by asking each panelist to sort of share an example of some allyship that they've experienced in their careers, either a positive or negative one, but maybe a positive one will maybe inspire some similar actions by the audience members. Maybe we can start with Anna, who we're trying to preserve the amount of speaking voice you have, right?
Right. So I have laryngitis. So yes. So I want to, talk kind of from my own perspective as somebody who has benefited a lot from allyship, what it takes for somebody to be an ally to me. So this is personal. And so I distilled it into 3 rules. Number 1, show up. And I'm not going to comment on, you'll know what showing up means. It sounds easy, but it's not, especially when there's nothing in it for you. So show up as rule number 1. Rule number 2 is lead by example, like model the behavior that you think is necessary. Don't necessarily even talk about it, but just model it. And rule number 3 is be positive. So I'm going to illustrate rule number 2 and rule number 3 with personal stories. So rule number 2, lead by example. So I want to call out 2 allies who have led by example, in my opinion, and have proved to be allies. And the first example is Leo Raisin. And there are very many instances where he has been an ally by leading by example, but I'm just going to tell you about one. So when we were in graduate school together, Leo became a parent for the first time. And it was very visible. So he brought his son with him to various events. He talked about him. He made sure that he wasn't working, like more than a certain number of hours a week so that he could give his wife some breathing room. And I didn't know at the time that that was allyship, but it really is. And this this is a behavior where he is an ally, not to me personally, but he's an ally to gender equality. So thanks, Leo. I'm not sure he's watching this on Zoom, but he's the ally number one that I wanted to mention. And I also wanted to mention another ally, Claudio Orlandi. Again, he wasn't an ally to me personally, but when his wife got pregnant, he missed a workshop that I think was important to him because he really wanted to go to it because he wanted to be with her and to support her through this journey. So again, leading by example. And it's not like he talked about how he's a feminist. He just acted as a feminist. So that's what I mean, right? Lead by example. And then in terms of be positive, I'm going to tell you another story, which I think is somewhat negative. So I said to be positive, so okay. This was a few years ago, and I work at Brown, and we had a discussion with undergraduate students about applying to graduate schools. And there were two of us leading the discussion. It was me and a faculty member in biology. And he is wonderful, and he was very eager to speak and share his ideas. So in fact, he was so eager that he kept interrupting me. And I don't mind it at all. I mean, I also interrupted him. I didn't feel there's anything wrong. Then a little bit after the discussion, the students complained to the administration about how the discussion was gendered and called him out on his male dominant behavior. And that I think is a negative example because they didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. They got him, in real trouble for nothing because I totally didn't feel like he was interrupting me more than I was interrupting him. So I don't think that behavior is helpful. Even if they, inside maybe they thought he's not modeling good behavior. I think calling him out like this was not helpful. So that's why my third rule is be positive. Tell people what you like about their behavior as opposed to what you don't like. So that's it.
Thank you. Oh, me next. Okay. Then I think I'll share something personal, hopefully positive. About 7 years ago, when I was in my first year of PhD, I encountered this one paper that I think it's great, but is discussing a new topic for me that I don't understand. And I was pairings, bilinear pairings, first time you see them, you squint a little bit, it takes a while to understand. And I had nobody that could guide me in that. So I gathered strength and wrote to one of the authors of the paper, who is a well-established cryptographer, Dario Fiore, me and the master student that was working with me back then. And he was just so kind. Within 1 day or two, he replied to the email with, this is the literature you can read. These are the answers to your questions. These are the trick in my paper that you didn't understand. And that helped me so much. It was a knowledge I couldn't have gotten otherwise. I mean, you have everything at your fingertips on the internet, but it's hard to find the right thing if you don't know what to search for in the beginning of your career. And what is very successful is that research paper that master thesis turned out to be a research paper, and Dario Fiore became also my co-advisor, and he's my personal role model for how he is. And whenever I feel sad about bad things that do happen, I think of him and it's like, okay, there are good people around. And if there is this example, I can also be one of these good people, and we can slowly turn things to the shiny side.
That sounds great, thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to be here with everyone. I guess we have much more people than I expected. I'm very happy to see that. So I want to share a positive story, but also a negative one, so that we see both sides of the coin, like what is good to do and what's not good to do. So I'm from Colombia, South America, and typically from these underrepresented regions, if you make it to these places, is either because of one or two things, or perhaps three things. So either your university or your region had someone who went out years ago, built a career and returned and helped you, or either someone from abroad somehow was involved in your community, in your region, and helped you as well. Or alternatively, which we also see this happen, well, you had opportunities that perhaps others didn't, you could afford pay a PhD or something similar, but that's more rare. But in my case, the community we had in our city was relatively small. And I want to share the story of someone who helped me achieve my goals, trying to get a PhD and something along those lines. This person is called Puya Farshim and Ashlyn Connolly as well. So they two attended an event in Colombia. So they attended an event in Bogota, which was a summer school, a very small summer school that I'm sure nobody of you have heard of. It's called Crypto.co. And for us, at least for my supervisor there, and like for the people involved, it was a big event. It's like, it took so much logistics to put it together and so much effort dealing with the bureaucracy with the different universities and systems that are relatively outdated and hard to deal with. And this event got put together and like they got a series of speakers from abroad. And that was amazing. And as an undergrad back then, it was for me very amazing to be, even I had to travel from one city to another. And I think this was my first flight, my first time on a plane. And like I'm traveling to a conference, and like a small conference in just another city, like 45 minutes away. So I go to this city and attend the event and ask questions, and I like what's going on. And then in a coffee break, I meet with this person, with Puya. And he sits down with me. He asked me, what do you want to do afterwards? And I say, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel confident. I just have an undergrad. By the way, undergrads in Colombia take 5 years and we have to write almost like a thesis, but like, I just have an undergrad. And I was like thinking very low of myself, and he was cheering me up, like, no, look, you are asking very valid questions. You have a very good background. You should apply to this and this and this and this and this and this and these places. And I still have the piece of paper where he wrote all this. You can read this and this and this and this and these books. You can contact this and this and this and these people. These are the topics that are good for you to check out. These are the, like, he gave me a super comprehensive list of things. And that's the first time I learned that there is a thing called Icr, for example, or that there's a thing called crypto or Eurocrypto or Iacr or Latin crypto for the matter, and many, many things. And then I learned about all this. I go to the Icr website, jobs option, and then I see that there some of the options he listed are there. And well, I get to apply, and he helps me with a recommendation, and that essentially, I think, helped my application go through. And it turned out to be a great experience. I'm very happy. I think the PhD went successful, and like it's all good. And I'm very happy that this happens. And it couldn't have happened if this person and this group of people wouldn't have attended there and be there for us. It's a small conference. I don't think they get any recognition for these type of things in the community, and it had so much value. Not only because of how they helped me, but also because of the people I have managed to help afterwards. So it's like, it's a whole chain. So that was the good story. And just for the negative one, sorry, maybe I should have started the other way around. So for the negative one, it's actually in the same event. So it was a conference in Bogota, Colombia. And it was very depressing sometimes because you could hear some of the international audience making very inappropriate comments of the facilities or of the city, or of the quality of the talks that students were giving, or things like that. And sometimes, I don't know if they think you don't speak English or what, but like you're next to them, they're talking literally super bad things about the, like, look, the bathrooms are like, oh, they talk a lot about all these things. This is not good. So I think it's pretty good to understand that not everything or not everyone are the same, to understand historical circumstances, why things are one way or another, and like not criticize from a point of view that perhaps may harm the others in a way that perhaps you don't even know. But it was a minor thing, but that was it, yeah.
Thank you for all of these stories. This is, so I'm going to share a positive story that actually impacted all of my career. So I'm from North Africa, and specifically from Morocco, and I was lucky to go to preparatory classes and to go to an engineering school, to move to France, so I decided to start a PhD, and I wasn't in the crypto community at all. So I was just interested in doing crypto, and I traveled, like in France, like it's easy to get funding, fortunately, like, so I traveled to Financial Crypto to, I think, present a poster. So I was like really outside from the crypto community, and And something that really strikes me still now is that like, this is really like, maybe like some people, they don't really think about it when they ask, but the first question that maybe like most of the senior people, they ask students is, who's your advisor? And who are you working with? And once they hear a name that they don't recognize or somebody like, you know, that they don't know, like you can see clearly like that the conversation is different. But one person actually was completely different, and he's actually in the room, Sini Kamara, and he was completely the opposite. And I remember I was presenting something on encrypted search, and the amount of interest that he showed to, I mean, I was just finishing my undergrad, starting my PhD, and the amount of interest was just striking to me. Like it's something that for a student, it matters a lot. Like for somebody like me, like just starting, seeing somebody who's really senior in the area, like, and somebody I was seeing back then, that somebody who's really pioneering the area of encrypted search, listening to a student with no publications, nothing, you know. And not only that, like I remember very well, because like it's something that really I keep very dear to myself and in my memories, is that like he asked me to send him my papers to read them. And you know, like, you know, the modesty, and like for some person to ask you this, like, I mean, I was like really like in my undergrad, like, you know, I remember, and it excites me to start working on encrypted search. And since then, like, you know, we started a collaboration, and you know, and he played a significant role. For example, like, you know, I remember in 2014, like there was an invitation only workshop, and he was sending an email to the organizer. No, there is a student, like you should invite him, and you know, and they will listen to him because he's senior. So, and this is how he played a significant role at very early in my career to actually access you know, a kind of very, you know, small community that without these kind of like helps, it's very, very hard. So thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing those personal stories. So before this panel, like all of us on an email discussion had like brainstormed, you know, many topics to talk about. I'm afraid, like, I'm really worried that we probably won't even be able to scratch the surface. We have a lot of interesting things to discuss. But I wanted to start off by mentioning that there have been some like affinity events within our community, like for women in cryptography. At previous, I think at previous cryptos, maybe there have been like a queer crypt meetup. And I'm wondering if anyone on the panel has any reflections from things that were learned, maybe things that can be reported back to those of us who are like interested in supporting these communities, and also from anyone in the audience who has some feedback for anyone who wants to be an ally to these groups.
Well, I guess I can take that one. And of course, feedback from the audience is welcome, any kind. So I haven't attended that many queer crypto events, but at Eurocrypt this year, I was there with Chris Pruska, and we was like, okay, there is nothing for, you know, queer crypto. And so just sitting on the sofa, we was like, okay, why don't we organize something? How hard can it be? And it took us 15 minutes to draw up some nice flyers and found a way to print them and then hang them in the bathrooms, because we thought that was the way you could be more private if you don't want other people to know about these things of yours. And it turned out to be a great success. We had 12 people showing up, most of them young and, you know, new people in the community. And after the first 5 minutes of introducing names, you know, who you are, what are you studying, where you come from, it was exactly the same kind of discussion as you have out there. Everybody was talking about crypto and say, oh, you should read this paper. Oh, but do you know about that result? So I think it's just great. And it's, how to say, the same way as somebody can connect with people from their own university or people from their same nationalities or people that speak the same language as you. That's just a different kind of community, and having it makes you feel you belong to yet another bubble, which is so good when you feel isolated and alone, or maybe somebody pulls your leg, and then it's like, okay, no, I have allies. I have somebody that shares something with me, even if, you know, we just talk about crypto. So that was a very great experience. And I think the lesson to learn here is lead by example. You want something to happen, make it happen. It's not that hard. I understand that it's hard to do alone, but just find a buddy. And then in 2 people, you can go a long shot with just 15 minutes work and change somebody's life because they got a new buddy that they can do research with they wouldn't have met otherwise. And this can be done for Queer Crypt, but can be done for many other initiatives, not just at conferences, but also within your own institution.
Great, thanks.
You're also allowed to clap if you want to.
Just scanning the audience in case anyone wants to join in. Don't be shy. We're all friendly.
There is a microphone.
I hope this is not a too problematic question, but I remember a discussion with some of my colleagues 1 year ago when we were talking about this kind of event for queer people or for women or for minorities, things like that. And thank you. And I remember one of the comments of my colleagues that said, "Oh, but it's something that's made for example, minorities. So, it's not. I mean, the papers that are chosen are not legit enough because of that, which is a garbage comment. I agree, but how can we avoid this kind of stuff for this kind of event, in your opinion? Because that's a criticism that's that comes and comes again a lot, I think.
Okay, so do you understand correctly what you're saying is like people that don't belong to this description feel like, okay, I cannot attend this event? Is that, no? Then I don't hear.
There's this problem, but also the results of these events are discarded because they are kind of reserved or seen as reserved to queer or women or minorities. And I mean, I have heard some criticism because of that. So I was wondering if you had ideas to solve this problem.
Okay, so like the way we did, like we also had some people that say, I don't belong to this bubble, but I'm supportive. And then we're open to that. So then, you don't only have people that could feel labeled by something, but in general, I think it's just a stigma that it's not there. And somebody brings it up, it's like, okay, then you're part of another bubble. Like, it's not that, this is the green eyes people. Like, I think like, just don't discriminate others when you create something, and people that say, oh, but this is only an event for that, it's just bad because only like, no, but I can understand in some cultures and in some countries, it's hard to maybe come out as gay and you don't want people to know that, you don't want people to label like that or to, point a finger. But I hope the Iacr community can do better than that. So that this could be a safe place where you can belong to whatever sub-community you feel you do belong to. But I can also take long discussions afterwards.
Thanks for that question. I wanted to talk a little bit about Iacr conferences kind of in general. Since 2018, as far as I could tell, we've had a code of conduct at the Iacr conferences. And I'm kind of curious to know whether that has changed anything. Has it been successful? Has it accomplished anything? Is it just security theater or conduct theater? Is there anything that should be revisited from the code of conduct? If there's any comments on that.
I mean, in general, I think I don't have a lot of experience on the Iacr conference in general, but like, fortunately, I think the community has been very supportive. And I personally, in the subgroup I belong to, never been criticized for this. But I think this is just because the group, for instance, I belong to, I think people in general agree that something should be done, right? Like people in general, like, oh, interesting to know that you're going through this, and we didn't know, and we want to support you. And like, this is in general the feeling I've get. But I'm aware that that's not the case with all communities and all particular groups that we have in our community. Like, there are problems that perhaps the community is more reactive, like less willing to accept that there is a problem in certain settings. I fortunately have never been a victim of that, so to speak, but I wonder to hear, I would like to hear if someone else maybe has.
Good time to mention that the ICR has indeed has the code of conduct policy. And I mean, I think it's a little bit of an honor code. It's just like, this is what we expect, the kind of behavior we expect. Enforcing it, of course, is another question because we don't go and police the attendees. We don't really know what people are doing. So this is more like, you know, but laying out the expectations of behavior is better than doing nothing. So that's kind of a baseline. And then we also have the ICR Ethics Committee, which is a forum which was appointed by the ICR Board of Directors. And I'm actually serving on the Ethics Committee. And when there's an ethical issue that our members feel requires some kind of a grown-up intervention, sometimes we hear from members of the community about these issues. The majority of issues are actually issues of academic ethics, you know, plagiarism, things like that. A small number of them may be regarding the code of conduct. So we haven't fielded a whole lot of complaints about ICR members behaving inappropriately, which I think is a reflection of the fact that this is actually a very healthy community with responsible adults. So we're lucky. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
So actually, right now the code of conduct, one of the issues that we have is that it tends to be associated just with the conference. And for instance, problems can happen outside conferences in our field, and I think we need to address that. That's actually one of the points that Tal Rabin is actually, we have to work on, because I think we have to make this more wide within the community. Like, it has to be something central to the ACR so that people have a way to contact us even outside when the problem doesn't happen within a conference. But I think it's a problem that unfortunately does happen. I personally don't know the cases, like there's some of this information is private, so, but it has happened, problems with within a conference of harassment and things like that. So we would like to think that it's not something that would happen, but unfortunately it does.
I should also mention that Tal is a hero for taking this on, because this is something she does. She's not on the ethics committee. She's more kind of an ombudsperson that people can come to if they have issues and they don't know what to do. And she, you know, and then sometimes they bring the issues to us on the ethics committee, and sometimes Tal just gives them good advice, and that suffices. So I think we should all, you know, thank her for doing this very big, and pretty thankless task.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing. And I think like maybe we don't need to know the specific of what happened and who was involved, but it's nice to have some sort of statistics so that we are actually more aware of these things. I never experienced anything myself within this community. I experienced a lot in workplaces or around the world when on visits for research studies, but never at a conference. But so it's like, I always perceive this as a very open and welcoming community from that perspective of, you know, physical safety. But it's good to know that, you know, there are counterexamples.
Yeah, I generally agree that we are a healthy community, but I think within the last weeks, and especially in the post-quantum area, we have seen within the last weeks a couple of things that I think, or a couple of examples of behavior and communication that shouldn't probably take place. And I think it's great that we discussed this today, but maybe like discussing the way we are communicating, independent of having policies and all these things. Like, this is a great event here for inclusion and all these things. But I think like maybe communication is more basic, and also maybe we should at some point discuss this. And how we want to behave based on that, or how we want to change such behavior, all both on the internet, maybe like on Twitter, for example, where we have seen these things very recently. And I don't know, I think this is, although in general we are a healthy community, I think this is not very healthy now.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not on Twitter, so
yeah.
I don't read all of that, but I heard the rumors despite not being on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks for that remark. I had a chance to talk to someone earlier this week who is a former general chair of an Iacr conference and asked them about the code of conduct, and they reported that it was actually helpful to have a code of conduct when you had to have that discussion with someone who needed to be kept in check. Like, you know, it's not just the general chair being a capricious arbitrary person, but we have a code of conduct, and if you don't shape up, we're going to kick you out of the conference. That conversation was made much easier by the code of conduct. So that's maybe one data point in favor of the code of conduct as well. So on the topic of general chairs, as we're still talking about Iacr conferences, is there any message you would want to give to future general chairs who are organizing events? Like, there's something that you wish that someone would be brave enough to try, or something you think they could do to make this a more inclusive event?
I can say a couple of ideas that I think would be really helpful for at least some countries, and this brings me to the topic of the timing of the crypto conference. So if you notice, like for example, the acceptance date, it's around April, May, kind of like, you know, these months, and then the conference is in August. So for some authors who are from different locations who require visa, 3 months is not enough. 3 months is not, even if you submit the paper, and of course, like, you know, there is the possibility of presenting your paper in a remote way, but there is nothing that replaces in person, right? So given 3 months, it's just like it's almost impossible. It's just like saying, like, you know, if you are from this country and this country, you will never come. And this is something that if it would be possible to replace and to think about, for example, if just having like more time between the acceptance date and also the event, that would be really, really helpful. Usually, from what I have heard from France, from North Africa, for example, as a data point, it's around 6 months to get an appointment, and usually like a week or two to get the visa. So let's say 6 months. So 6 months is the average. And it doesn't really depend whether you have money in your account. It doesn't depend. It's really like, it's a process that everybody needs to go through. So yeah, so this is the one maybe suggestion to at least to think about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense, and it's also important to take into account that after COVID, these 6 months in several places have become like 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. Like it really depends on the consulate or embassy you're applying from. And I think so. There is a big question or big debate about what can we do as a community, and I don't think there's a simple simple answer that you can give to that. I think it's something that we have to build together, all of us, those who are affected by it and those who are not affected by it. But I do want to mention, I mean, it's hard to be concrete, right? About like, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. But I think the first step towards solving this issue is a systematic issue, and it's also not an issue that, I mean, we are just simple walking citizens. Like this is a governmental, like this is a systematic thing that we cannot solve. But something we can do at least is just be aware of it. Just be aware of it. So regarding something concrete, how can you be aware of it? Well, being in this panel, like, is a great way of doing that, but also towards the next and upcoming steering committees in the different conferences, a good concrete idea that you can apply is, for instance, opening and closing remarks. You can thank explicitly the people who went through the arduous, expensive, and exhausting process of getting a visa and managed to be at the conference, and also acknowledge those who perhaps couldn't do it, so that we just know, oh, there is a list of people who wanted to be here and they just couldn't be here. Like, couldn't. It's not a matter of like, oh, they didn't do things in time, or yeah, they just didn't whatever. Like they just didn't get a paper accepted and their institution doesn't allow them to travel if they didn't get a paper. It's not about that. It's really like it's impossible. So I think this is something concrete that could be done to raise awareness, and small steps like this could take us to a more healthy community where we understand someone came here from India or from certain regions in Africa or from South America. Wow, you did so much to be here. It's so nice that you can be here. I'm grateful that you're here. So I think that's something we could do just as a start.
If it's okay, I would like to chime in. So I think part of what I see with hybrid conferences is that there is a way for people to attend. And I understand and hear the comments about how it's not a substitute, or it's not a one-to-one equality with attending in person. And I agree. And I think that for some folks, it has been difficult to travel for whatever reason, for COVID, for children, for caregiving, for visa problems, you know. So to urge future general chairs of conferences to please have hybrid. And I know this sounds self-serving because I run the hybrid conferences. I don't mean it like that. I mean it in the sense of, if IACR is an international organization, then people from everywhere should be able to attend. So I would just really urge future general chairs to consider the hybrid option. That's all.
Thanks, Kay.
Mike, can I just add something very brief to what Kay just mentioned? I think I just yesterday heard a story also in a conference. It was not an ICR conference, but it was a hybrid event. And there was this person who had these two persons, they had two papers. And they agreed that one of them would present one paper and the other would present the other paper. One of them couldn't go because of visa. And the conference chairs mentioned, oh, I mean, that's fine. Your other colleague can present both papers. And they're like, I mean, I need my face to be seen, right? This is important for my career. But no, we prioritize in-person talks. I know there is a psychological factor to it. You're sitting here and you're either looking at the screen and there's no one to interact with, or there is someone standing there looking at their face. It may or may not matter, but I think for this person not to present, it really does matter. So when we say let's have hybrid conferences, not only let's have them, but it's actually be completely okay with people who cannot attend. I think there has been certain pressure in not accepting online talks, or like at least, oh, can you do something? Maybe someone else can present for you, or like if there's 6 authors and at least one of them is there, then why not let the author who's there? I think it's important that we also are accepting with this.
So not just on the side of organizing the conferences, but just in general within our community, to talk a little bit about like a culture of international respect. So within our community, these are not maybe IACR official events, but we have like regional events. Like the ones that come to my mind are like Latin Crypt, Indo Crypt, Africa Crypt, and I'm probably missing a few. I apologize. It seems like these events sometimes have kind of less stature than they deserve, like when you compare them against like similarly ranked conferences. And so I'm wondering, is there something we can do within our community to sort of fix that and you know, improve the culture of respect?
So I think that I can start. I think that you know, hopefully in the future, like I'm being optimistic that Africa Crypt, Latin Crypt, and Indo Crypt will reach at some point the level of let's say a flagship you know, crypto conference. But I would say that there is something that ICR can do a little bit to improve, like given the importance of these conferences. Like, for example, I would say for Africa Crypt, I know that ICR has some relationship to Africa Crypt. Maybe it's an affiliated event or something like that. I am not sure. The exact you know, affiliation. But one thing that it would be really helpful is that to have, for example, summer schools that they are affiliated to that conference. For example, Africa Crypt. Yes, I understand that many students, they would prefer submitting to a flagship because this help their career. And, this is completely understandable. This is something that I do as well. And, this is just the system where we live in. But if, for example, ICR allows for or adds summer schools where they encourage really prominent cryptographers to give talks and, for example, paying for them, just, hey, there is a summer school on NPC, summer school on encrypted search, or summer school on any topic, and they will invite many researchers to go there physically in person. So it has a lot of advantages. First of all, the students of that region or that country can fly or can just go there to meet in person with the really researchers they just hear or just see in videos. But also it will serve as an education, because really many of the countries, I'm speaking at least from North Africa, is that we don't really need, yes, conferences, they are great, but what really we need there is really tutorials, schools, to help really the student there to interact with researchers, to learn about a topic. And as Daniel said, he was lucky to find this person who told him exactly what to do. This is something it will take maybe an hour for if you are senior, but if you don't have that help, it will take years. And maybe if you do it wrong, you are all set for your career. So sometimes these small helps, when you just have a one-on-one chat with a senior person, it's really helpful. So definitely I think that if ICR can invest a little bit into adding really good summer schools like that, it would be really helpful for this conference. And hopefully in the long term, it will help. Maybe people will start submitting to these conferences because they know researchers are there, and it will help bringing this conference a little bit up.
Yeah, I can encourage, from my personal experience, I can encourage attendance at some of these conferences. I only have personal experience with IndoCrypt, but attending IndoCrypt was probably the most successful recruitment activity I ever did in terms of recruiting grad students. So I was invited to give a tutorial there. And one thing I didn't realize was that students from all over the country, anyone who's interested in crypto comes to IndoCrypt, everyone who can at least. And so there are students from all over the country attending the tutorials at IndoCrypt. And as a result of that trip, I saw lots of, I'm not used to seeing students who necessarily know about crypto applying to my university in the main pool. And then all of a sudden there were students who knew about cryptography and knew about garbled circuits in the pool. And as a result, I got one of the students to come, and she has a paper here at Crypto this year. It was a great success. So I know that maybe a selfish motivation, but I'll definitely encourage my colleagues to think about attending some of these more regional conferences.
I just wanted to add something as in my capacity as a member of the board of directors. If you want to lead by example, you don't have to wait for the ICR to come and organize a summer school where you feel one is needed. In fact, you can organize it yourself and ask the ICR to help fund it. We have a schools committee. We accept proposals for ICR schools in various subjects and areas. And when considering these proposals, we definitely value geographic diversity. So we like seeing proposals that are from areas where it's currently difficult for researchers to attend our flagship conferences.
Maybe I can chime on giving the LatinCrypt version of it. So I attended LatinCrypt in person only during my PhD a couple of times, and it was a lovely conference. So I don't understand these comments. It's so great. First of all, of course, what we can do as a community is submit your papers there. Second, you go to very nice places. You have amazing people that are super hospitable. And you know what? The Wi-Fi is usually iffy, but this means you actually talk with people. And there aren't that many people. So I had, a one-to-one chat with Shamir for 10 minutes in Cuba. Who else gets that chance? So it can give you different things that you don't get at such a large conference where I won't have the time to actually talk to everyone and to know things about every one of you.
Right, yeah. So to compliment on what about the ICR conferences and so on. I think there is an important. I want to share a quick story. So when I was during my undergrad, I was reading papers, and then you see papers published everywhere, and you like crypto, Eurocrypt, Asia crypt, Africa crypt, Latin crypt, Indo crypt, and name it crypt. All of it means the same for you. It's like I don't really have any ranking on any of this. And I was very excited. I was like, oh, wow, we have geographical locations. I mean, it's like you have the World Cup, and like everyone goes to the World Cup, and Latin America is equally important as Africa, is equally important as Asia. It's like all these regions matter, and like you're all the same. They're like just the local regional cups or whatever. It came as a surprise that it started progressing, that like people will tell me, yeah, oh, there is something called Latin crypto. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, there's something called Africa crypto. I didn't know. And like there are many more that I don't even know. So I think the first thing that could happen, that could be done, is that like making these conferences be better is an effort that we also have to be engaged with. It's a matter of stop joking about this paper is so bad that they won't even accept it at Africa Crypt, because I have heard this personally. So stop joking about this. That's the first step. And then from that, we can jump to saying this paper, you know, what is good? It deserves being there. And I think we've seen recent conferences that are born because enough people with enough credentials say, you know what, this looks good. Let's create a conference. Let's all give value to it, like Bitcoin, you know, like, no, let's give value to it. And then it has value. So there is one thing of they just reaching consensus that this should be a thing. But second, like the steering committees from this conference and so on, it's a joint effort. They should also limit the amount of papers to raise the bar. Of course, it shouldn't be like a free, right? Like there should be a merit to become like a much better recognized conference. It should be a joint effort from the community and also from the steering committees. And just along those lines, I also want to mention that, well, as I said, I thought there was a geographical association to them and so on. But there is clearly political. Like why is Africa crypt less quality than Eurocrypt? Someone please come and tell me that's a coincidence, because that's not. So I want to just, again, this is where everyone can dream, but like, what about removing geographical tags to conferences? Like it could be a thing. Like what have Eurocrypt and crypto, which is essentially US crypto, or Asia crypt? Why not just have different conferences that jump from one place to the other every year? And if I cannot make one, I can always make the other. I know these statements are very bold and like hard to make and so on, but it's good just to let it go to the air, because it's good to be aware of these things, I think.
Or what if you could pick where to present according to, you know, maybe you cannot travel far away, or maybe dates that collide with some personal things, and then you can present to another conference once it's accepted.
Yeah, so I think what to do and how to solve it is a big deal that like, we can solve it right now. But like, I know Daniel Schutte, for example, before just gave a very interesting suggestion, like why not having a single, I mean, again, this is just like, oh, why not? Of course, we're not going to do this, but like, why not having just a single event with all the flagships into it? And there are like different issues, so to speak. They're going to take part in different places. You submit to one and you get accepted to this very single conference, but like, okay, you get to publish in the one that happens this time in Chile, and then you get to publish in the one that happens in Indonesia, and it's all the same conference. We all got accepted to crypto or to the ICR conference suite, or whatever we want to call it, but like just a single thing. And anyway, I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon, but I think just brainstorming about this is healthy. Just talking about it, I think, is healthy.
Yeah, we have seen the community is growing, the number of papers is growing. We need a new model anyway.
Yeah, this all sounds like a really informative, productive feedback for the discussions that are going along in the IACR board about the revamping, rethinking the publication. So I would just encourage the people on the panel here who have strong opinions and big ideas to participate in and people in the audience as well to participate in the discussions on the IACR chat, chat.iacr.org. There's a discussion for publications, if I'm not mistaken. We are nearing the end. I have like 10 million other things we could talk about, but I wanted to make sure if anyone in the audience has like something burning thing that they would like to contribute, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So it hasn't really been said, so I want to say it explicitly. I really think it's amazing that this is happening now, this panel. Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you for being here. And I just want to stress that leading by example and visibility are two very important things. And you know, I'm not a woman, but the fact that there is now a meetup for women in cryptology that shows also, hey, we as a community care about this. That's why the event is here. The same applies to, you know, queer crypt, which kind of was a rogue thing at Eurocrypt, but the fact that this exists and that is there. I mean, even if you're queer and you don't end up going to it, or if you're not queer and you don't necessarily are in the target audience, it still shows like this is a community that cares about it. This is what the values are. That there are pronoun stickers, by the way, I think is really cool as well at this conference. I mean, for many people, this might not be something that they personally need, but by them being available and by many people using that, you show, okay, people that are, you know, in a gender minority, you are accepted as well. We facilitate you being here, and we love that you're here. So I really want to encourage everyone in our community to keep showing that you care and keep making things visible. And often it's like the small gestures that really help a lot, and the big gestures like this event are help even more. So I really hope that this is not a one-off thing, that these examples that I now mentioned, that they keep continuing, and everyone, I think, in this community can help doing those things and keeping that vibe going. And I really hope we can make that happen. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Hi. I just want to make a small comment. I unfortunately was not able to see the majority of this panel. I just came for the last few minutes because I was at the women's event. I think that's really unfortunate, and I just wanted to bring up that these events are really important, like really, really important. And I think that it would be great to recognize that there are intersecting issues that are impacting people in more than one way. So I'm a woman, I'm queer. You know, I'm Jewish. Like, there's identity aspects that we all have, that we all bring to the table, and they're all different, and they're all like coming together. So I think that I would have liked to be here for this panel and hear your thoughts on all of this. So maybe next year we can do something more intersectional, and for everyone to come together and be together in this space.
Sorry, I did just want to point out that this is recorded, so you can watch it later.
So out of respect for everyone's time, it seems like it's about time to wrap up. We scheduled an hour for this event. And it occurs to me that we have lots of brainstorming, just questions for discussions that we should probably save for the next iteration of this event. I look forward to being an audience member in the next version of this panel. So thank you everyone for coming and showing your support for this kind of event. And it's nice to hear that you're supportive of these kind of things. I want to thank again, Allison, of course, for organizing, and of course the panelists for participating, and thank you all for coming. And we'll see you and continue the discussion at the beach barbecue. Thanks.